resorting to shutting down services as an expression of disagreements with the quantum of the amount the government is offering the taxi industry as relief support does nothing for the industry. A service shutdown will not only negatively affect the working class, the working people of our country, who rely on taxis as a mode of transport, but will worsen the devastation of the taxi industry. The taxi industry is in the process of recovery from the combined impact of limited operating hours and reduced loading capacity as a consequence of COVID-19 pandemic. The decision to avail 1.135 billion rand to the taxi industry as relief support was not an easy one. We literally had to scrape the bottom of the barrel to reach this amount because we believe the taxi industry is deserving of support as the largest mover of our people. A special dispensation of this nature was created for the taxi industry as it falls outside the category of the formalized industries and small businesses of our country. We must equally appreciate that government has limited resources, which must equally benefit all other sectors. And even other sectors have actually received something to nothing, if there is such characterization. It is for this reason that none of the relief packages equate or could be equated to compensation for losses, but rather limited support to cushion the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic. The reality is that there is no more money available beyond what the government has offered. We can't lie, we can't claim easy victories, we can't promise what government can't afford. We are in a big discussion with the taxi industry to look at formalization of the industry, but at the same time to attend to the question of a subsidization of the taxi industry. At the time we engage with the taxi industry on this relief support, we invited them to submit proposals on the best mechanisms to disburse the funds and benefit all the operators. The door is still open for creative ideas to maximize value for this limited benefit for all operators in the country. Increasing the amount available is simply not an option on the table. I wish to repeat, the door is still open for creative ideas to maximize value for this limited benefit for all operators in the industry. Increasing the amount available is simply not an option. We have emphasized many times before that whatever support we avail to the taxi industry, it must be for the benefit of all operators, including that owner-driver who owns one taxi in a rural village. We did not create a fund. We are disbursing from 500 billion rand of the president 1.135 billion to taxi operators. And that is done to one taxi owner wherever they are. A fund will mean a different story altogether. The proposed mechanism to disburse these funds through SARS is intended to achieve exactly that. Equally so, the mechanism will allow us to identify government officials who may want to double dip by claiming for this support while earning salaries. We have taken note of the industry objections to the model we seek to employ to disburse the funds. We have therefore made a commitment to further engage within government on the industry concerns and provide feedback to the industry on Wednesday, 24th June 2020. We have further committed to the industry that the Tuesday meeting will also provide feedback on their proposal for 100% loading capacity. We will then proceed to issue directions to formalize the process and to give clear guidance on how individual operators can access the relief benefit. We have equally made a firm commitment that we are moving towards a funding model that will ensure that the taxi industry is subsidized. Even that funding model will be subjected to negotiations. It will be subjected to discussion, as we would have done with the taxi indaba. We had not launched the taxi indaba. In terms of our plans, the taxi indaba was supposed to have taken place by the 1st of April. We believe that from the 1st of April next year, a full subsidy grant must have been agreed in this country to subsidize the taxi industry. It has been 26 years that the taxi industry has found itself not formalized, not regulated fully and fully formalized. Now we know and we understand that that is not going to come by simply getting into the table and agree on formalization. It's going to take hard negotiations, hard negotiations and discussions because of how the taxi industry has been from the days of apartheid. We have achieved unity in the taxi industry, but we have not achieved formality in terms of its operations. This is part of the long-term commitment government is making to the industry, which must be underpinned by an accelerated process to formalize this industry. While others see formalization as a challenge, there is no doubt that it is central to the long-term objectives of sustained economic growth of a sunrise industry such as the taxi industry. On Friday...
In a moment, we will continue and go back to the Minister of Transport as he briefs the media on a way forward after the planned shutdown by Santaco in Gauteng tomorrow. We'll be right back.
In support of the industry, which include providing personal protective equipment, among others, to support the industry. While our plans to hold a national taxi indaba were disrupted by the COVID-19 pandemic, we remain committed to placing on the table a long-term taxi industry empowerment model for discussion with all stakeholders. We, like I said, that discussion is on the table. Empowerment model and a funding model that will formalize the taxi industry is on the table. Government agrees on subsidization of the taxi industry. And we know some of the challenges and the fears that could be there with something new that comes. Anything new and anything new means a lot to some. It is the fear of the unknown. But at the end of the day, elsewhere in the world, if you look at the developed world, you look at the developing world, and you compare countries that have undertaken a model of formalization, it has had good result economically for the country, but also good benefit for the industry. This model will outline the tangible economic support government intends to provide to the industry and the critical trade-offs that have to be made both by government and industry to ensure its successful implementation. We are convinced that there is no basis for any kind of shutdown, and we appeal to the leadership of the taxi industry and all members of the taxi industry to discourage any such actions and give space to ongoing discussions. Our engagements with the leadership of the taxi industry have been cordial and constructive, and we do not believe there is any basis for acrimony. Our collective effort and focus must be on directing resources towards the long-term sustainability of the industry. We reiterate our commitment to introducing subsidy as part of the long-term empowerment model of the taxi industry. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Minister. I'm going to now read the questions that have come in. There's a question from Barry Bateman, who wants to know, as we've seen in the past where the taxi industry withdraws its services, it uses violence to ensure that any other service does not operate. The question is, what measures are in place to protect the public and other operators? This is the question that has come in thus far. Minister, I'm not sure if we can ask also the MEC to weigh in on this. I'll also ask the good advocate to my left whether or not there are any measures in place in terms of law enforcement, and then you can close with your final response. MEC Jacob Mababolo, I'm going to ask you to please come forward, sir.
Okay, thank you very much, Honorable Minister and CEO, and ladies and gentlemen, happy Father's Day. Very briefly, as the province, we just want to convey to the people of our province that, and of course to the taxi industry and all transport operators, that we remain very much confident that the engagements and discussions that are taking place, led by Minister with the taxi industry, Santago and NTA, will definitely break new ground on this matter, both on the immediate matter of the relief that is being sought and, of course, the transformation of the taxi industry in the long term. So we have confidence that those ministers should move the taxi industry one step forward. And the cooperation of the taxi industry is critical. With respect to the action tomorrow, we just want to indicate there are two issues of concern, Minister. The first one being the impact on the commuters, including the fact that you could have some people probably losing their jobs if they are late at work. We have a high rate of unemployment. We're under COVID-19 conditions. Many industries are starting to take off and start their operations, and you can imagine if any worker is not there, with the high rate of employment that we have, that could pose a challenge to commuters also as workers. That issue in our province is deeply concerning because the action is only here, and we wish we could understand, Minister, why our province, perhaps that will find to know at some point. We understand we are the economic hub of the country, but we're deeply, deeply worried about commuters and also to workers. The second issue is on the matter that was raised. We believe law enforcement should be able to enforce the laws of this country and make sure that there are no acts of violence. We are concerned that Santaco is going on a shutdown, and NTA, or the Gauteng National Taxi Alliance, has said they will be operating tomorrow. We hope this does not set back the unity in the taxi industry that we have been working so hard on and to build. Because what could happen on the ground, we do not know what could happen, but the culture and the history in the taxi industry is that under these conditions, there's normally difficulties. So we just hope that law enforcement will be able to prevail over anything that could harbor or, seek to undermine the laws of the country. But we hope the unity that we have worked so hard for in the province will not suffer tomorrow in between the main taxi associations, or the only two taxi structures that we have in the province, when members, others try to work and others try to operate. So to that extent, Minister, we have confidence in law enforcement that they will be able to protect the laws of this country and make sure that there's stability, there's peace, there's order, and also protect commuters and other modes of transport that could also be targeted. So to that extent, we're sure that the law will take its course and we can leave this matter, Minister, as a province. Thanks a lot.
All right. Thank you very much, Barry Bateman. Obviously, where the law has been undermined, the rule of law and the rule of law and the authority of the state must be exerted. Anyone has got the right to protest, to raise their views and all of that within the prescripts of the law, and chant their disagreement in whatever manner that they can, but they must not infringe on the right of others who want to get to work and want to operate. So that is why this shutdown is counterproductive, and it's not good for Santaco, it's not good for the taxi industry, it's not good for all of us, because the demand on the table that is being murmured is around the announcement of the 1.135 billion rand for the taxi industry, that it is too little. We have had a long discussion on that matter. We have gone back and forth. We have gone back to the Treasury. We have gone back to government. We have looked and all of that, and it is not possible to go beyond that. So the strike or the shutdown is counterproductive. If we were to strike for a subsidy in the long term, which is the big discussion we're going to have in this country, that is reasonable, because you are now talking about the future, something that is personal, something that is permanent, that is going to be implemented for the rest of our lives. If you protest about something that is coming, that is permanent, that is going to affect the industry for the rest of our lives, it is reasonable. Now, for something that is introduced because there is COVID-19, we shut down the industry that is ailing, and people who want to go to work. Remember, that person who's supposed to go to work is your brother, is your sister. But tomorrow, there's no mobility to get them to work. They might lose their jobs and all of that. It's counterproductive. It's going to be counterproductive for our people who rely on the taxi industry to go to work. So we appeal to the industry that at this lateness of hour, let us not go that route. This is not the time to fight. It's time to build and work together. I know anyone can argue that the money is too little. If we were to calculate the compensation, if we were to calculate the loss, we will agree that the money is little. It will not cover the costs of what the taxi industry have lost during COVID-19. It will not. Even any intelligent, unintelligent mathematician or whoever, arithmetic and so on, it will never cover the loss of what the taxi industry. And I'm the one to admit as a minister that the taxi industry suffered hammer blows. And that is why, as the Minister of Transport, I went to government and then I convinced government that, yes, they are not formalized. If they are formalized and they are fine, they pay tax, we shouldn't be here. Because they will be going like everybody who is paying tax, who's registered, and then going to claim their money from Treasury and SARS and whatever that is designated, that I am Fikile Mbalula owning 16 taxis, I want this money. We had to even get that to be allocated because arguments get to be raised. Why do you take so much money from the taxpayers and the fiscus for people who don't contribute to the fiscus revenue boost in the country? Why do you spend R1 billion on that? We argued that because it is a sunrise industry and that we've got a plan to formalize it within a very short space of time, those negotiations are going to be hard. I don't regard the debates and the discussion we've had with the industry about 20,000, not 20,000 as negotiations. It's just, awusibonelele Mbalula, nje ukuthi awuzame kubi, you know, and that is how I regard it, and that is how I've approached it as such, and that is how government have responded on this matter. And under normal circumstances, you are entitled to go and claim the money. Like now, we've got more than 200 billion. I've read that BTEC report last week on Friday when we announced that the small enterprises are unable to claim the money or they've been rejected because of the conditionalities of tax. Now, these are people who are registered with the revenue and they've been rejected and they can't access the money. And then obviously Treasury is going to say that, but I give you money, so what do we get? Formalization. Yes, we give you money and that is it. So taxi industry did not agree with us on that. And then I promised them that I'll come back as agreed next week, Tuesday, after my discussions with Treasury on the conditionalities. But I've got to explain to South Africans that I have reached an agreement on the issue. I've been pronouncing on the relief, talking about it, and everybody has been saying, when are you disbursing and where is the money? I announced, here is the money. And I don't need anybody's permission to announce what we have agreed.